Well, for more, we can speak to Vivianne Kovess Masfety, a psychiatrist and professor of public health at the University of Paris. Thank you so much for coming in today. The assailant is supposed to have gone undergo a psychiatric exam this Friday morning. What would that entail?
Obviously, there are some psychiatric traits involved. I mean, I didn't see him personally, so we have to be very careful. We know things from outside, but he was under a lot of stress. Everybody know now the story in Sweden that he get married, that he didn't get a nationality as he want, and probably he was starting to feel insecure. So he was trying to travel around, but maybe in a bizarre fashion. That could be case for psychotic patient. And then he arrived, he was living with no contact, as the person just said before. He find him strange. Some strange thing happened. He was found by the policeman naked in the lake, so which is a bit bizarre. And then he was observed as speaking by himself. So there were some small indicators that he may have a psychiatric problem, but nobody, of course, can imagine that he could act that way.
Yeah, and should officials or authorities be taking into consideration the mental state of someone like this before they rule on someone's status?
I think it's one of the problem is training of the general population and officer in psychiatry. And of course, you cannot train everybody in psychiatry to recognize psychotic traits. That's not so easy to recognize. So, there is nobody to blame on that respect. Is that, of course, if you are a psychiatrist and you describe all the traits I just mentioned, it's ring a bell. But when you are a normal citizen, it's just a bizarre guy who don't speak French, who is a homeless.
Let's talk about the victims. A lot of concern for the ones that are still in the serious treatment. If you were speaking to them, what would be your main message to them, and what would you be looking for the survivors of this attack or for their families?
I think for the family, I am working on life events, and to lose a child is the highest rank. But fortunately enough, at the time we are speaking together, we don't know what will happen. So the first things I should say is I hope they will survive, and it will not be too much sequela for them, for the family, and they could be back to normal as much as possible, as soon as possible.
The timing of this coming towards the end of the school year, it's nice weather out. Lots of families are going to parks like this one. Is it a knee-jerk reaction for someone to want to stay indoors and avoid that? Would you tell them to not be worried by this and still go out, still have a normal life?
Of course. I mean, accident with a mental disorder person happen. But we should remind everybody that most of the murder or things like that are not done by psychiatric patients, but, by people involved in drug traffic and things like that. I mean, the majority of the people who are killing other people are not psychiatric patients. That's very rare. And he has in some way a classic pathway. For an immigrant coming from Syria, avoiding the war. I heard somebody saying immigration kill. I would like to say war kill. I mean, this guy was in Syria, he ran away for not being involved in a war, stay in Sweden. But, in Sweden, it was not so easy for him to really become part of the society. So, all of that play a role, and It's a very rare event, and of course, we do not need to make a lot of warning on things like that, and to bring that into a political aspect toward immigration. I mean, that's a very, very sad event, but exceptional.
Yes, already a very difficult, tragic situation.
Yes.
Dr. Vivianne Kovess Masfety, thank you very much for your time.